Today is Friday of the third week of Easter. We're gathered here today in the chapel of the Jesuit Center in Warnersville, Pennsylvania. This building was built in the late 1920s as a novitiate and juniorate for the then Maryland province of the Society of Jesus. Around 250 men would have been living in this house in that era. About 100 novices, about 100 juniors. The remainder were priests and brothers who maintained the place and taught the classes and so on. And this is the chapel in which they met. You can't see it, but it's an Italianate ceiling design, 3 stories high. Behind me, you see the baldacchino over the high altar. Nicholas and Genevieve Brady, who are the benefactors of this building and of the society, are buried in a crypt below the high altar. If you face the high altar, to your left is an oratory behind an iron screen. It's called Mrs. Brady's Oratory. She and Nicholas were unable to enter into what was called the cloister of the novitiate and the juniorate at that time. Iron gates closed the main body of the house off from any visitors to maintain the isolation of the Jesuits who lived here. But Mrs. Brady was a faithful Catholic and faithful to the society. She was also a good friend of Cardinal Pacelli, who visited here in the 1930s. He later became Pius XII. And so, with his permission, this oratory was built for Mrs. Brady and Mr. Brady so that they could hear Mass facing the priest at the high altar without breaking cloister. So they are buried in this crypt, and every month the Jesuit says Mass for them downstairs in the crypt. So it's a wonderful history, part of our lives as Catholics, our lives as members of the Society of Jesus, and those of you who are faithful collaborators with us. In our readings today, we hear the conversion of St. Paul in our opening reading. In the Gospel, the scribes and Pharisees challenged Jesus on his sense of his coming down from heaven and offering us the bread of life. And so as we're gathered in this place perhaps is a special reminder of those of faith who have gone before us, marked with the sign of faith. We stand on their shoulders, we follow their examples, we benefit from their recognition of who Jesus really is, his real presence among us, his real presence in his church, his presence in our lives as he invites us to help him build his kingdom. Let's recall, too, that the forces arrayed against the good, against the church, against us are very, very great, including St. Paul himself. What an irony that often the greatest antagonists then become the greatest supporters. It all happens through God's grace. And so as we engage with the reality of our church in the modern world, its internal challenges and its external challenges, let's pray for the intercession of St. Paul. Pray for the intercession of all who have gone before us marked with the sign of faith, that we too can follow in faith, to serve faithfully. And let's perhaps ask the now deceased Jesuits who lived and worked in this building to be our intercessors as well, and to invite us at one point to join them in the communion of saints before the Lord in heaven.